या देवी स्तूयते नित्यं विबुधैर्वेदपारगैः सा मे वसतु जिह्वाग्रे ब्रह्मरूपा सरस्वती. नमामि नारायणपादपङ्कजं करोमि नारायणपूजनं सदा वदामि नारायणनामनिर्मलं स्मरामि नारायणतत्त्वमव्ययम्. अपार करुणासिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरेन्द्रगुरुं नमामि बुधान्वहं. ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्तिः, पूजामूलं गुरोः पदं, मन्त्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यं, मोक्षमूलं गुरोः कृपा. Invoking the grace of Vagdevi, Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayappan, Mahaperiva and Guru Parampara. We are now entering into Dasakam 22 of Narayaneeyam, verse number 1. As a side note, I would like to say this Dasakam means 10 verses. Normally, any chapter which contains 10 verses is called a Dasakam. But the three part is not strictly adhered in all that. In some Dasakam there are 11, 12, etc. That's the total number of verses in Narayanam is nearly 1034 verses are covered. In this chapter, in this Dasakam also there are 12 verses are covered like the previous one. The title of this Dasakam 22 is Ajamila Upakyanam, means the story of Ajamila. Upakyanam is the story. And it is set in the meter Vamshasta, which has got 12 syllables in each line. We'll now go to the verse number 1. Ajamilo nama mahi surah pura charan vibho dharmapatan grihashrami gurur gira khananametya drishtavan sutrishtashilam kulatam madakulam. Ajamilo nama mahi surah pura charan vibho dharmapatan grihashrami gurur gira khananametya drishtavan Sudrishtashilam kulatam madakulam. Vibho, he Vibho, pura ajamilaha nama mahisuraha, grihashrami dharmapatan charan, guroho gira, kananam etya, sudrishtashilam, madakulam, kulatam, drishtavan. The meaning is Vibho, hey Vibho. Vibho means one who is all pervasive, or the head of the Lord of the three worlds. Hey Vibho, O all pervasive Lord. Pura, long ago. Ajamilaha nama Mahishuraha, a Brahmana by the name Ajamila. Grihashrami, who was a householder. Dharmapatan Charan, one who was leading a righteous life. Guroho Gira, at the request of his father. Kananam Etya, going to the forest. Sudrishtashilam, an immodest. Madakulam, given to drinking. Kulatam, an immoral woman. Drishtavan, saw. O Lord, who is all pervasive, long ago there was a Brahmana by the name Ajamila, who was a householder and led a virtuous life. One day, at the request of his father, he went to the forest to collect darba, etc. There he met an immoral, immodest woman who was given to drinking. This is the literal meaning of the verse. Here, the Lord is addressed as Vibho. Vibho is a name which comes also in the Vishnu Sahasranama. I don't think I covered it earlier, so I will quickly go through that meaning of the word Vibho and then proceed to this verse. This comes as the 240th name of the Lord and also the 880th 80 names of the name of the Lord in Vishnu Sahasranama Archana. Vibhu, as per Shankara Bhashya has said, is Hiranya Garbhadi Rupena Vividam Bhavati iti Vibhu, the one who is manifest in many forms. So Vividam Bhavati iti Vibhu, that's the meaning there. Hiranya Garbha is is addressed to Brahmaji also, and is also the Swarupa of Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu is Vibhu because Vividam Bhavati, he is manifest in a variety of forms. In the creation there are varieties and varieties of living and non-living forms, and in each variety there are so many with shades of differences. Some varieties of living organisms maybe are extinct today, but every individual or organism that has existed in all these ages and exists now does not have the same code, etc., that you have. Like our own finger, when you take, it is different, and our thumbprint and earlobe are unique, different from what others have. So there is total variety in the creation. And this variety is due to the Maya Shakti, which is the power of the Lord. In fact, in Dakshinamurti there is a stotram which says, Jagadidam Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaijitra Chitriyam. This world is made in a wondrous way with countless permutations and combinations of place, time, and so on. The Lord as the Sat and Chit is the basis, the invariable, in and through all the varieties of the Namarupas. Therefore he is called the Vibhu, manifesting as the many, one manifesting as the many, even as Hiranyagarbha and other Devatas. Vibhu therefore also means pervasive, that is Purna. In fact, this reference is made in the Mundaka Upanishad as Nityam Vibhum, means always Purna, one who is complete. In the 80th also the word is used as Vibhu, which means Bhagavan is Vibhu. Sarvatra Vartamanatvad Trayanam Lokanam Imbhutvadva Vibhu. Bhagavan is Vibhu because Vibhidam Bhavati, he is manifest in manifold ways, as varieties of things and beings, and is in and through everything, as the Lord of all the worlds. His manifestation is not stereotyped. The whole universe with its varieties of flora, fauna is an amazing blessing. So this is the glory of the Lord, the Vibhu. So the one who is the all-pervasive and one who is also the support of the creation and the Lord of all the three worlds, in short, is called Vibhu. And such a Lord is addressed here. And the word is Vibhu is because it is all your Shakti only which pervades the creation. So the wondrous aspect is talked about in the Hey Vibhu, O Lord. And the story is now about the Ajamila. The word Ajamila, first let's understand the literal meaning of the word Ajamila, and we will go into that further. There are two interpretations here. Aja and Mila, if you split like this, then it becomes Ajaya, Avidyaya or Mayaya Milanam Yasya. Means one who is overcome by ignorance. Ajaya is also called Maya because Maya is nothing but is that Maya and ignorance are the two sides of the same coin. In fact, due to Avarana Shakti of Maya only, there is an ignorance of oneself. So Maya causes the ignorance. So the individual level, it is called as avidya or ignorance. At the Ishvara level, there is no ignorance. Therefore, we use the word Maya for Isha, because Ishvara with Maya Shakti only, the creation comes. So Maya has got the capacity to cover the knowledge, as though the veiling capacity is called Maya. Therefore, Ajaya could be used as Avidyaya or Maya also. Both are interchangeable. So here in this case, we can talk about as that in the case of Ajamila, it is due to the ignorance of oneself that he was deluded. And therefore, Avidyaya Milayanamasa, he is overcome by ignorance, and which made him take to wrong path. The word Ajamila also has got another meaning. We can split instead of Ajamilaha, we can also say Ajamim Lati. That means who was under the control of a whore, W-H-O-R-E. Ajamim Lati. Ajamim is a prostitute, is called a lover. He is also called Ajamim. So the story goes like that. He was influenced by the prostitute or the whore, and therefore we can give this meaning also. Ajamim Lati. So one who was was under the control of a prostitute, or one who is overcome by ignorance. Both the meanings are applicable here. The word Ajamim also, the word used also refers to, the word is Ajami also means Indian hemp, whose dried leaves are used for smoking or chewing as a narcotic. That's why this word is also called as an intoxicant, plant from which coarse fibers are obtained for the manufacture of rope and cloth, and also as a narcotic drink made from this plant. Therefore also called as Ajami. The word Ajami also means that the Indian hemp also is also called Ajami. So this kind of interpretation can be given. With this understanding, we will know into who are this. So the Ajamila was a householder. It should be understood here that Ajamila was one who was a very virtuous person. He was a household grihastha and he was leading a virtuous life. But it so happened, it's all the effect of the Maya Shakti, that one day at the request of his father, he went to the forest to collect fruits, flowers, etc. For performing the yajna purpose, father had sent him to the forest to collect fruits, flowers, then the dharba, sabit, etc., which are used for the yajna. So he went to the forest. There he met a woman who was, twofold qualifications are mentioned, who was a sutrishta shila, an immodest woman. An immodest woman means what? One who is making the other person under her control. That is, immodesty is talked about. That means she is not of a pious, not of a right conduct. One who is of a false conduct. So that's why she is called immoral. Then immodest. Then madhakula. Madhakula means he was given to drinking. Was a drinking. So, and the third one is kulata, means an immoral woman. That means immoral woman is one who has got no values. So immoral and immodest goes together. A person who is immoral becomes also immodest. That means he takes to wrong thing. So he led a life, therefore, when he went to the forest, he was influenced by this woman and he led a life drowning himself in intoxication and sensual pleasures. This is what happens when one is overcome by ignorance. That is being talked about here. That's why the word is called Ajamila. Ajamila is not the original name. It's an attributed name. You have to understand that. Therefore, this person, Ajamila, who is a righteous person, was overcome by this woman who made him take to the wrong path. So he was also therefore influenced by her and he took to the wrong path. This is how the words in here. Due to aviveka only, this happens. Milanam refers to the concealment of the jnana chakshusha. Milanam word can be seen as a concealment of the jnana chakshusha, means the ignorance. So forgetting is grihastha dharma. Because of ignorance, he led this life and he was influenced by the woman and took to the wrong path. That's how it should be seen here. And the story goes further, or the further developments are summarized in the second chapter. What is to be understood here, very important, is that it is very difficult to be straight and upright unless one is in the right company. If one is caught in the wrong company, one can be led astray. That's what satsangam is talked about here. Here Ajamila was not a bad person. Ajamila was a good person. He was leading a dharmic life. He was a grihastha. That's what is talked about also very clearly. And therefore, only thing that because he had no control over himself, that when he was led astray, when he went to the forest and met the woman. That's how this shows about it. We'll go into the verse number 2 in the next session. Bhave bhave yada bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurusha devesha natastam no yata prabhu nama sankirtanam yasya sarva bhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana akila guru bhagavan namaste. Ya devi stuyate nityam vibhuder vedaparagaihi same vasati jikhvagre brahma rupa saraswati. Namami Narayana padapangajam karomi Narayana pujanam sada vadami Narayana namanirmalam smarami Narayana tattvam abhyayam. Apara karnasindum jnanadam shantarubinam Sri Chandrasekhirendra Gurum namami bhutanvaham. Dhyanamulam gurur murtihi puja mulam guruh padam mandramulam gurur vakyam mokshamulam guruh kripa. Invoking the grace of Vagdevi Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayappan, Mahabhariva and Guru Parampara. We are now on Dasakam 22. In the last session we completed verse number 1. Before we move on to verse number 2, I would like to touch upon a few other things in verse number 1. It is mentioned there that Ajamilo Nama Mahisuraha. Mahisura is the word used. The word Mahisura means a Brahmana. How it is derived is, the word Mahi means Prithvi. It has got two meanings, Prithvi or cow. So Mahi means here the Prithvi, and Suraha is always means the Deva or the God. And so the God on the Prithvi is called Brahmana. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord says, Daivadinam Jagat Sarvam Mantradinam tu Daivatam Tad Madranam Brahmanadinam Brahmanaha Mama Devataha. The Lord gives a logic of saying how Brahmana is, they are my Devata or my God. Like all the things in the creation are under the adhina control of the Deva, Ishvara. But that Ishvara is under the control of mantra. And this mantra is ruled by the Brahmana. That is why Brahmana, mantram to Brahmana dhinam. And therefore the Lord says, Brahmana is my Devata. So keeping that meaning in mind, we can consider it as that the God here is on the earth is the Brahmana himself. In fact, Brahmana is the one who performs yajna and through yajna satisfies the Devas. So Mahishuraha means, therefore it's called Brahmana. I just wanted to explain that. And the word Ajaha means also is Brahman or Ishvara. The feminine form is called Aja. Last time I mentioned Ajaya also. Ajaya also is Maya. Feminine form Aja is also called Maya. So Mayaya Milanam. That way we can take it. So the Aja Mila is derived that way. Another thing, the word is Guror Giraha. Guru normally means teacher. But here in this context is mentioned here as father. He went to forest at the request of his father. Why the father is also Guru? Because as per our tradition, when the Gayatri Diksha is given to the son, the Diksha is done through the father. The Acharya chants the mantra, Gayatri mantra, secretly through the ears of father, and the father chants this through the ear of the son. So therefore the father becomes the teacher. Thereby the son gets initiated to Gayatri mantra. And therefore, keeping that in mind, the word Acharya Guru also means also the father. Generally, it also means the chief or the Brihaspati, etc. So in this context, therefore, Guroho Giraha means the father. At the request of his father, it was mentioned. And one more thing which I want to say here is that he hailed from the city of, it is mentioned in the Bhagavata as Kanya Kubje Dvijaha, means he came from the city of called Kanya Kubja. That's mentioned here. Now we will move on to the verse number 2. Swatah prashantopi tadahritaashayah swadharma mutsrijya taya samaraman adharmakari dashami bhavanah punaha dadhau bhavannama yute suteratim. Swatah prashantopi tadahritaashayah swadharma mutsrijya taya samaraman adharmakari dashami bhavanah punaha dadhau bhavannama yute suteratim. This Dasaka is contained also in the Bhagavata, the 6th chapter, 6th Dasaka, 6th Skanda, and the Adhyaya or the chapters 1 to 3. These are condensed in this Dasaka. Bhagavata 6th Skanda and Adhyaya 1 to 3 or chapters 1 to 3. Now we go to the Anvaya of this verse. Swataha prashantaha api tadahritaashayah swadharmam utsrajya taya samaraman adharmakari dashami bhavan punaha bhavan namayute sute ratim dadhau. This is the Anvaya. We'll go to the meaning. Swataha prashantaha api. Though self-controlled by nature. Prashantaha means controlled, calm by nature. Tadahritaashayah, his mind being attracted by her. Ashayaha means the mind. Here means mind. Swadharmam utsrajya, giving up all his duties. Taya samaraman, enjoying her company. Adharmakari, leading an unrighteous life. Dashami bhavan, becoming very old. Punaha, then. Bhavan namayute sute, to his son who bore thy name, Narayana. Ratim dadhau, became very much attached. Though by nature self-controlled and calm, he was attracted by her, and giving up all his dharma, swadharma, all his duties, he led an unrighteous life, enjoying her company. And when he became very old, he lavished all his affection on his son named Narayana. The progress of Ajamila, or the regress of Ajamila, is brought about here. It is mentioned here was Arjuna, the Ajamila by nature is Swataha Prasanta. Swataha means here he is since by birth. Because he is a Brahmin and he was leading a pious life, he was initiated to the mantras and he was he was abiding by the Dharma in strict terms, following the scriptures. Therefore, he was by nature self-controlled, swataha. But what happens is, although he was self-controlled and calm, he could not control himself. He got deluded. Who deluded? The woman who is kulata, a prostitute, the immoral woman. And therefore, thereafter it is mentioned, led an unrighteous life. Means he became the slave of indriyas and started leading an adharmic life. That means he deviated from performing his own dharma and then went after her, performing all wrongful or sinful actions. It should be noted that all adharmics actions are due to excessive desire for enjoyments, bhoga lalasa. It is mentioned that Ajamila could not control his lusty desires with the help of his knowledge and intellect, although he was a Brahmana, and he failed, and as a result lost all his good sense. So in the days followed, he always thought about the prostitute, and within a time he took her as a servant in his house and abandoned all his dharma and achara. It should be mentioned and understood that Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says one should not deviate from his swadharma. Sudharmo ritanasreyaha paradharmo bhayabaha. He says that we should do our swadharma strictly. Even if you get killed, this swadharma is more shreyas than doing some other dharma. So he is a Brahmana. He deviated from his Brahmin dharma of doing his nitya karmas and performing exas and studying scriptures. And then paradharma, he ran after the prostitute and got entangled in the sensual desires, the lusty desires, which was through that woman prostitute. So he began spending the money he had inherited from the father on various gifts to satisfy the prostitute. These are all mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita also. He abandoned his beautiful and dharmic young wife who came from a respective family. Thereafter he spent his entire life irresponsibly breaching the dharma and not abiding by the scriptures. Living thus extravagantly, he started doing all unrighteous actions, such as cheating, harassing others, and even indulging in theft and gambling. It is mentioned that in our Shastra also, Dharma eva hato hanti, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. Dharma protects one who protects dharma, and one who causes harm to dharma, that means one who becomes adharmi, he gets killed by dharma. Dharma eva hato hanti. This is what happened to also Ajamila. So over the 88 years of Ajamila's life, 88 is what's mentioned here, so nearing 90 years, he fathered as much as 10 sons by the prostitute. And he named his youngest son as Narayana, who was dear to him and mother also, and slowly by getting attached to the name of Narayana, he got purified. What is mentioned here also that the word used here is Dasami Bhavanaha. That means when he became very old. Dasami means very old. We could also interpret Dasami as the 10th stage. If you consider the ayus as 100 years, divide into 10 years, the 10th stage is called Dasami. So it could be interpreted as very old. When he became very old, that meaning could be given. So when he became very old, then he started becoming remorseful of all his action. All that he started is seeing the fright, whatever he did in the past out of lust became a source of fear for him. He realized that there is no other refuge, and he started that by showing his affection to his son, who is named also Narayana, the youngest son, Narayana. This is what happens in Visarga. Both Virakti and Mukti is required. Virakti is detachment and Mukti is liberation from samsara. And that is possible. All material desires must disappear. That's what is pointed out here. And Virakti shall come towards all engagement, all enjoyments until now. And then the remaining desires get transferred. And in this case, the remaining gets transferred in the form of his attachment, Rati, towards his son, affection. Rati is the wife of Kamadeva. We could understand. So here the Rati, the word means the excessive attachments or excessive attachment towards his son he developed. And fortunately that son was nobody but Narayana. So when he got transferred, when all his desire got diverted towards, in the form of love towards his son, this love also we can infer that it got transferred in the form of a devotion towards Lord. So when he was naming his son, when he was calling his name Narayana, the word Narayana itself purified his mind. That's what should be seen here. So the term Bhavan Namamate implies this aspect of attachment. So the true devotion started overflowing at this stage. And this message is covered in this verse also, that he lavished all his affection on his same Narayana. And the word Narayana, if you have already seen earlier, one of the meanings, and various meanings are there, but the very important is Narasya Ayanam Narayana. The goal of every human being pursuit is Narayana. Or even the path also is Narayana. Gati also is Narayana. The end also is Narayana. Sadhana is Narayana. Sadhya also is Narayana. Ayanam represents the path as well as the destination. So Ajamila also, he showered his affection on his son. And slowly the material desires, etc., which created fear in his mind and which became a source of insecurity for him, gradually got annihilated, and he started enjoying giving his affection to the son and chanting the name by calling him as Narayana. And this word, name of Narayana, purified his mind, and he became a true devotee at a later stage. That means he retraced his earlier life through this son. That is what is mentioned about in this verse. We'll move into the verse number 3 in the next session. Bhave bhave yata bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurushva devesha natastam no yata prabhu nama sankirtanam yasya sarva bhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana Akila Guru Bhagavan Namaste Hari Om. Ya Devi Stuyade Nityam Vibudhair Vedaparagaihi Same Vasatu Jihvagre Brahma Rupa Saraswati. Namami Narayana Pada Pankajam Karomi Narayana Pujanam Sada Vadami Narayana Namadharmalam Smarami Narayana Tattvam Apara Karuna Sindhum Jnanadam Shantarubinam Sri Chandrasekharendra Gurum Namami Bhutan Bham. Dhyanam Mulam Gurur Murtihi Puja Mulam Guruh Padam Mantra Mulam Gurur Vakyam Moksha Mulam Guruh Kripa. Invoking the grace of Vagdevi Goddess Saraswati, Guru Vairappan, Mahaperiyava and Guru Parampara, we are now entering into verse number 3 of Dasakam 22. We'll read the verse first. Samrityukale Yamaraja Kinkaran Bhayankaram Strin Abhilakshayan Bhiya Pura Manak Twats Mritivasana Balat Juhava Narayana Namakam Sutam. Samrityukale Yamaraja Kinkaran Bhayankaram Strin Abhilakshayan Bhiya Pura Manak Twats Mritivasana Balat Juhava Narayana Namakam Sutam. Anvaya Saha Mrityukale Bhayankaran Trin Yamaraja Kinkaran Abhilakshayan Bhiya Pura Manak Tvatsmriti Vasana Bhalat Narayana Namakam Sutam Juhava. Saha means he, Mrityukale at the time of death, Bhayankaran Trin Yamaraja Kinkaran, 3 fierce looking messengers of the god of death. There is Yamadharmaraja. Abhilakshayan, seeing before him, Bhiya, in fear, Pura, long ago, Manak, a little, Tatsmriti Vasana Bhalat, because of the strength of the impressions of remembering you in the past, or remembrance of you in the past. Narayana Namakam Sutam, his son named Narayana, Juhava, called. At the time of his imminent death, he saw before him 3 fierce-looking messengers of the god of death, and in fear he called his son named Narayana, impelled unconsciously by the strength of the memory of his past devotion to thee. We saw in the last verse that Ajamila had 10 sons and Narayana was the youngest son. As old age approached, he got frightened by his own past actions and was getting attached to the name Lord youngest son Narayana, and by getting attached to the youngest son Narayana and uttering his name, he got also purified in the process. Now in this verse it's talked about that at the time of death, 3 Yamadutas appeared before him. You have to remember even that Ajamila had 10 sons, but at the time of death, when the Yamadutas appeared, he called only the youngest son. This is because he could remember to call Narayana, the youngest son, due to past samskara. Bhattacharya is very clearly mentioned, because of the past impressions only, he could call the name of his son, because the name Narayana also will not come automatically. Since he was attached to his son, and he could spontaneously, effortlessly remember him and call his name, call the son Narayana. Of course, he remembered the son's name, he remembered the son, and he called Narayana. Not actually remembering Narayana, but the means also is the end only here. It must be remembered here that unless we involve the mind while chanting Lord's name, the result will not be as effective as when we chant mechanically. In Ajamala's case, it could be interpreted that even after committing sins, he could get, Lord came to his side through Vishnuduta and gave moksha just by his uttering the name Narayana. It is only to show the power of the Narayana Nama. It is called Arthavada. In the Arthavada, one aspect of the act is glorified, that the power of the Narayana mantra is proud. So even if a person had led an unlawful life, unrighteous life, he can still gain moksha when he remembers his name. Although this may not sound logical, but the episode could be seen as a means for strengthening the faith in the name of the Lord. Such an in-depth devotion of the Lord is implied here. The 3 Yamadutas at the moment of death, Ajamila saw 3, in the Bhagavata said, it said 3 awkward persons. Bhattacharya said frightful. He saw fierce looking messengers. In Bhagavatam it said 3 awkward persons with deformed bodily features, fierce and trusted faces, and hair standing and erect on their bodies. This is all the description given in the Bhagavatam also. They are the Yamadutas, Yamakinkaras, the servants of Yamaraja. And they had come to take Ajamila away to their master's abode. We must remember here that Yamaraja, although he signifies the Lord of Death, but he is also a Dharmaraja. So we get, the Yamaraja gives the reward as per the actions of the individual. When a person performs good action, he goes to hell. When a person performs wrong action, he has to suffer, maybe as in the hell, or should take another birth. So it is always in keeping with dharma that Yamaraja gives the punishment, and he should not be seen only as a messenger of death. So in this case also, he came, and when he saw, the Ajamila was extremely perplexed or bewildered, and out of fear, remembering this young son, he loudly and tearfully called the child Narayana. And we should remember one aspect here also, that it may be noted that faith or conviction is always fruitful. When one loses self-confidence and bequeaths to the Lord for the protection of oneself, one can move forward with confidence. Lord's anugraha is our confidence. In this way, the faith gets converted into self-experience or conviction. Yamarukankaras and we'll show the next verse, the Vishnudutas, both represents also symbolically the various modifications of our own thoughts, which are both sat and asat, good and bad. And it is difficult to comprehend how strange are these thoughts, which are like the Indrajalas, and make us sometimes wonderstruck. In the case of Ajamila also, although he called his Narayana, son Narayana only at the time of death, he could utter the name due to punya generated by him in this birth itself, because of total attachment to his son and sincere love shown to his son after his all past karmas, bad karmas. So initial bad karmas were replaced by the good karma towards the end. He was a Brahmana and led a pious and righteous life also initially. Thereafter only he got strayed from the action. He strayed from the good path. And he dedicated at that time also all his actions to the Lord only for long years. This should be remembered very clearly. Ajamila should not be seen as a bad person totally. Only when he met the woman, he took a wrong path. So in old age again, he was remorseful and of his unrighteous acts, and that is why he got attached to his, which got manifested also in the form of attachment to his younger son, Narayana only, and not other sons. That's why he didn't remember other sons, only Narayana. All this needs to be kept in our mind also. In this connection, it is also worthwhile remembering also the sloka in Bhagavata. Else, I think it is mentioned somewhere in the Bhagavata 8th, in the second skanda, I think. In the second skanda, it is mentioned here, skanda 2, chapter 1 and 6th verse, where Shukacharya says, Janmalapa parah pumsam ante narayana smritihi. He says, a person's life becomes fruitful when at the end of his life, when the end approaches him, he remembers the Narayana, the Lord. Ante Narayana Smritihi. Here also they talk about Ante, means at the end. Now, to which Sridhara great Bhashyakara, he mentioned that Ante Narayana Smritihi should be seen as Swasante. In the last breath, the Narayana should come. Now, we don't know which is our last breath. Therefore, Sridhara Yarava said that every pratiswasante Narayana Smritihi. That means it's every breath we should remember the Lord. That way when we remember the Lord, we gain His anugraha and we gain mukti. So ante is to interpret it not only swasante but also pratiswasante. That's how it is explained also in Bhagavata also. And even Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that tasmat sarveshu, that is in Adhyayam 8. And in the verse number 6, it is mentioned, or 7, verse number 7, he mentioned, Sarva tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. O Arjuna, therefore remember me at all the time. Not only at a particular point, not only towards the end, but all the time. You remember me even while performing your war. That means when we perform our work also, we remember Him. That's what He says. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. In spite of fighting also, you can still remember me. Mayyeva buddhihi maveva evshasi. Mayyarpita mano buddhihi. One who dedicates his mind to me, mameva evshasi. He reaches me only. Lord says, asamshayam. Without any doubt. This is like a guarantee card given by the card. In some other context, he said, Kaunteya pradijanihi name bhaktaha pranashyati. So, the bhakta is one who remembers the Lord's name. So, even when you remember at the end, it is not easy. It is because of samskaras, past samskara, only Lord's name comes. That is why we have the tradition of even naming our child after the Lord. So that even if you remember the son, at that time you are remembering the Lord. That aspect is being brought about here also in this verse, that the Ajamila also, that when he saw the Yamadutas, he got frightened and he was confused and did not know what to do. But spontaneously, by reflex, he remembered his son. And then he uttered his name. And he could utter the name because he was all along attached towards their son, towards his old age. So, Ante Narayana Smritihi is also brought about very significantly here. We also should see this verse as that even if, as Ajamila, even if we have done some wrong actions, we can always rectify ourselves, and every moment, in every breath, we chant Narayana, Narayana, the Lord's name. In that way, we gain His anugraha and we also gain His blessings, so that towards our end, our life becomes fruitful. It becomes Janmalabha parah pumsam. That sloga is very important. Janmalabha parah pumsam ante Narayana smritihi. That way, this second verse concluded. We'll move on to the verse number 3 in the next session. Bhave bhave yada bhaktihi Padayos, we completed verse number 3 actually. So we'll move on to the verse number 4 in the next session. Bhave bhave yata bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurushva devesha natastvam no yata prabhu nama sankirtanam yasya sarva papa pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana Akila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Hari Om. Ya Devi Stuyade Nityam Vibhuder Veda Paragaihi Same Vasajishvagre Brahma Rupa Saraswati. Namami Narayana Padabangajam Karumi Narayana Pujanam Sada Vadami Narayana Namanirmalam Smarami Narayana Tattamabhyam. Apara Karunasindham Jnanadam Shantamurtinam Sri Chandrasekharendra Gurum Namami Mudhanbham. Dhyanamūlo Gurur Murtihi Puja Moolam Guru Padam Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa. Yasya Prasadat Ahameva Vishnuhu Mayeva Sarvam Parikalpitam Cha Ittam Vijanami Sadatma Rupam Tasyangri Padmam Pranatosmi Nityam. Invoking the grace of Vagdevi Goddess Saraswati, Guru Vairappan, Mahapiriyava and Guru Parambara, we are now entering into verse number 4 of Dasakam 22. Durashayasyapi tadhatva nirgataha tvatiya namakshara-matra vaibhavad puro vipetur bhavatiya parshadah chaturbuja pitapata manoramaha. Durashayasyapi tadhatva nirgata tvatiya namakshara-matra vaibhavad puro vipetur bhavatiya parshataha chaturbujaha pitapata manoramaha. Anvaya. Durashayasya api asya puraha tadhatva nirgata tvatiya nama aksharamatra vaibhavat. It's one compound word. Chaturbujaha pitapataha manoramaha bhavadiya parshadaha abhipetuhu. Durashayasyapi puraha. Even though he was durashayaha, evil-minded, puraha means up before him, tadhatva nirgata tvatiya namakshara-matra vaibhavat. Solely by the glory of the letters of thy name, which emerged at that time from him. Chaturbujaha, with 4 arms, pitapataha, wearing yellow robes, manoramaha, of enchanting appearance, bhavatiya parshadaha, thy own emissaries, abhipetuhu, appeared immediately. So, in spite of his being evil-minded or unrighteous, there appeared before him immediately, solely by the glory of the letters of thy name, which emerged at that time from him, thy emissaries, with 4 arms, wearing yellow robes, and of enchanting appearance. Here, the mention is made about the Vishnuduta who appeared. Durashayaha is the word used, means one who is durachara, means one who has no achara. It means one who is adharmik. That's the word used. So even though he was adharmik, he had led a life in between. We should always remember, he was born to a Brahmana, but he was dharmic, but only in between. He was adharmic. So even though he led that life, even though he was well-minded, there appeared before him the Vishnuduta. Now, which emerged at that time from him, and how did they appear? Because of the power of the Narayana. It says, by the glory of the letters of thy name. The letters of thy name is talked about. The letters of thy name means there are 4 letters are there. Na, Ra, Ya, Na. And in some book it's translated that because there are 4-lettered words, 4 Vishnuduta emissaries came there to rescue him. That means by the grace of the Lord's name, four messengers of yours. And how are they? It is being mentioned as they are one who are with four arms. Chaturbujaha, definition is given here. Chaturbujaha, with four arms. Then Pita Pataha, wearing yellow robes and of enchanting appearance. The word used is Manoramaha. That means that which captivates the mind. So you should be remembered here, these descriptions which are given, they resemble also the Lord Vishnu himself. Lord is also Chaturbuja, four arms. He is also wearing Pitambara. Pita Pataha means Pitambara. And Manoramaha is always beautiful and captivates our mind. What is implied here that Vishnu Dutas are not different from the Lord himself. The Lord himself has appeared, Mahavishnu himself has appeared as the Vishnu Duta. That is being brought about here. Vishnu Dutas are resembling the Vishnu only. That is how the description, the importance of the description is talked about. Then Tadatva Nirgata Tvadiya Namakshara we just now saw. So the power or the glory of the Narayana is explained here by this phrase, saying that Vishnu Devatas appeared before him. Now, symbolically we can see here also, with reference to Ajamila, the mind has got two divisions. One is called the Upari Mandala and Adho Mandala. The Adho Mandala is filled with Ragadveshas. They are the lower divisions of the mind, the lower base. Whereas the Upari Mandala is the abode of the Suddha Chaitanyam, which is Sattva-guna Pradhana, predominant with Sattva-guna. So naturally filled with sattvic thoughts of pure consciousness. So whenever an evil thought entertained by us, the aham, the samskaras, the lower aspect of the mind, that is the Adho Mandala, comes into existence. And the ahankara aspect or the samskara aspect can never be destroyed. But at the same time, that which in the Upari Mandala always dominates over the Adho Mandala. That's what he's talking about. That although Ajamala was straight from the path of Dharma, but he again came back. So the refinement or samskara of the mind is responsible here for the presence of Vishnu Dhuta, which belong to the Upari Mandala of the mind. Other thoughts which propel the presence of Yamadutas, and they govern them to lead to unrighteous life. They belong to the lower layer of the mind, that is called the Adho Mandala. So Bhagavatvam or divinity is permanent, is talked about, whereas non-divinity is ephemeral and impermanent. Even in Valmiki Ramayana we see when Valmiki uttered the word Ma Nishada, although it was addressed to the hunter, involuntarily that added secondary meaning, another primary meaning. Ma means Mahalakshmi, one in whom the Mahalakshmi decides, that is the Lord Vishnu. It had indirect reference to the Lord. So here also when he uttered the name of the Lord, Narayana, although he is his son, it belonged to the Lord only. So the Vishnu significance is brought about here. There is a verse in Sanskrit that Arogyam Bhaskaradiche Sriyamichet Utasanat Jnanamitvet Jnanam tu Maheshwaradichet Mokshamichet Janardhanat. Here we have to see here the significance here that the Yamadutas which are talked about, they do the function of samhara. That means death is aspect of the laya. So that they represent the Shiva aspect symbolically, and the Vishnu represents the creative sustenance aspect. So the one gives here mentioned Jnanamichet Maheshwarat Jnanamichet and Mokshamichet to Janardhanat. It says the Shiva gives Jnanam and Vishnu gives Moksham, that is a salvation. Apparently, as per the Kaivalya Upanishad, Jnanateva Kaivalyam, moksha is only possible through knowledge, and therefore there is no difference between saying that knowledge is separate from ignorance. So through knowledge one gets liberated. So what is implied in this sloka is that both Shiva and Vishnu, they belong to the Parabrahma Surupa only. They are one and the same. So in the verse when it's mentioned here that the Shiva, the Dutas which come here, the Yamaduta, they respect the Samhara aspect, that is called as the Visarga, and Vishnu represents the Sarga aspect. So between the Visarga and Sarga, there is a Aikyam. Oneness is also brought about through this. In this, one more thing comes to my mind. There is one verse called Rama Raksha Stotra. In that Rama Raksha Stotra, which is composed by the Buddha Kaushika Muni, it is mentioned one verse. There are 38 verses or so in that. It's very important, very useful. They protect us. It says, Bharjanam Bhava Bijanam, Arjanam Sukha Sampadam, Tarjanam Yamadutanam, Rama Rameti Garjanam. That when you chant the name of Rama loudly, then it distracts. Bharjanam Bhava Bijanam. It destroys the bija, the seed of samsara. That means one is liberated from samsara. That's what it says. That means, and then it says Arjanam Sukha Sampada. It gives sukha. Here when we say Sukha Sampada, what is mentioned here, you get happiness internally and not through external things. Because I am akinchana. We always say that the Atma is akinchana. I do not want anything from outside. There is no need for external or finite possession to make me happy. I am always happy. So that kind of happiness one gets, which is eternal, which cannot be replaced by any kind of Vishaya Sukha or sensual pleasures. And Tarjanam Yamadhutanam. It drives away the Yamadutas who cause the fear. In fact, they go out of drives. They are driven out of fear by chanting the name of the Lord. The glory of the Rama's name is brought about. We have seen the earlier also in the Kim Purusha Varsha. Rama was invoked as a God Lord and worshipped by Hanuman and the Rishis. The glory of the Ramanama is that it has got through alphabets Rakara and Makara. Rakara belongs to Narayana. This is called the Bija Akshara, and Makara belongs to Shiva, which is the Namah Shivaya. When you remove the word Ra from Narayana, there is no Ayana, so it becomes meaningless because the Bija Akshara is not there. Similarly, Namah Shivaya becomes Nashivaya. So that which brings life into Narayana and Namah Shivaya is the alphabets called Ra and Ma. Narayana, Namah Shivaya. So in Valmiki Ramayana also, so Namah Shivaya and Narayana becomes Mara. So it is mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana that Valmiki, being a hunter, he was not refined. He did not have a refined mind. So initially, he could not even utter the word Rama. He uttered Mara, and when he uttered Mara continuously, it became Rama. That is one way of putting it. But Mahaparivar in one of his talks mentioned that it is not that Mara became Rama. The word Mara also belongs to Ambal, the goddess. And by the goddess grace, he could get the grace of both Shiva and Vishnu. Because Nama is an amalgam of Lord Vishnu and Shiva put together. So, through Shiva, one gets the grace, knowledge obtained, and through Vishnu, one gains the moksha. That's how one can see also here that Ajamil also had the anugraha of both Shiva, Yamaduta. They symbolize the Shiva, and the Vishnu Duta symbolize Lord Vishnu. So in their presence, once they got the presence, then through Vishnu, he got liberated. That is the significance also there. And these letters of the Narayana, Lord's name, brought the emissaries of the Lord. Immediately it says, that is the power of the Nama. That is also brought about here. With this, verse 4 is completed. We'll go into the verse number 5 in the next session. Bhave yata bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurusha devesha natastum no yata prabho nama sankirtanam yasya sarva bhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param Narayana akila guru bhagavan namaste Hari Om. Ya Devi stuyate nityam vibhudair veda parakaihi same vasati jikhvagre brahma rupa saraswati namami Narayana padabangajam karomi Narayana pujanam sada Madami Narayana Namanarmalam Smarami Narayana Tattvam Abhyayam Apara Karunasindam Jnanadam Shantarubinam Sri Chandrasekharendra Gurum Namami Buddhanbham Dhyanam Moolam Gurur Murtihi Puja Moolam Guru Padam Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Yasya Prasadad Ahameva Vishnuhu Mayeva Sarvam Parikalpitam Cha Ittam Vijanami Sadatma Rupam Tasyangri Patmam Pranatosmi Nitya. Invoking the grace of Vagdevi, Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayappan, Mahapriyava and Guru Parampara, we are now entering into verse number 5 of 22 Dasakam. Before that, in the last session, I just wanted to make a correction which a slip of tongue occurred when I made a mention. I said, Maheshwarat Jnanamichet Mokshamiche Janardra. Explaining that, I said, the knowledge is not different from ignorance. It's not ignorance. What is that? Knowledge. It is a slip of the tongue. Knowledge is not different from moksha. Because the moksha, the liberation, is not a goal, but it is the nature of every person. I am Nitya Muktaha. That is a message given in the Upanishads. And therefore, the Atma Jnanam, the knowledge is the Atma Jnanam. The Atma Jnanam liberates a person. And he gets immediately released from the bondage of samsara. So the knowledge is the cause for liberation. And there is no action to be performed here. Because since my very swarupa is that I am a liberated person, mere be knowing I get liberated. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. It looks as though that knowledge, although my essential nature, I am not able to know that I am a Muntya Mukta because of ignorance. So ignorance as though covers knowledge. Shankara also takes very clearly. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. Therefore, Abhirodhita in a text like Atma Bodha, he says, Abhirodhitaya karma na vidya nivartayed vidya vidyam nihantyeva vidya vidyam nihantyeva tejas timera sangapate. Since karma is Abhirodhitaya karma is not opposed to, karma is the byproduct of ignorance. Karma is not the opposite of ignorance. And therefore the ignorance can be only replaced by knowledge. In fact, the very knowledge itself is nothing but removal of ignorance. And Shankara says, like tejas timira sangapate. Like a darkness is destroyed instantaneously when there is a deep darkness itself is destroyed when the light falls in that place. In the very presence of the light, darkness goes away. Similarly, in the very presence of the knowledge, Atma Jnanam, self-knowledge, the self-actualization or self-realization takes place. One immediately gets released. And therefore, we should see that verse, that is not that Vishnu gives knowledge and Shiva gives moksha. When Vishnu, the verse should be seen as the oneness should be seen. Vishnu gives knowledge and Vishnu gives also moksha, because the knowledge itself gives moksha. And when we say Shiva gives moksha, means implied that Shiva gives knowledge also. I remember that verse, that word Rameshwara, which has got multiple meaning. That to Rama, Shiva is the Ishvara. Ramasya Ishvaraha iti Rameshwaraha. And to Shiva, Rama is the Ishvara. Ramaha Ishvaraha Yasyasa. One is the Tatpurusha Samasa, here it's a Bahubri Samasa. And there is another way of looking at it is Ramas Chasav Ishvaraha. Rama is Shiva, Shiva is Rama. That oneness. So knowledge is moksha, moksha is knowledge. That is implied in that verse, which I thought I would clarify before moving forward. Now we will go into the verse number 5. Dasakam number 22. Verse number 5. Amum cha sampashaya vikarshato bhatana vimunjate tya rudhur baladami nivaritaste cha babajjanaistata tadiya papam nikilam nyavedayan. Amum cha sampashaya vikarshato bhatana vimunjate tya rudhur baladami nivaritaste cha babajjanaistata tadiya papam nikilam nyavedayan. Anvaya, amumcha sampashaya vikarshataha bhatane vimunchata iti ami bhalat aruruduhu tadha bhavajjanaihi nivaritaha techa tadiya pabam nikilam nyavedayan. Amumcha means him, sampashaya means tying up with ropes, vikarshataha dragging away, bhatan the messengers of Yama, vimunchata release him, iti ami. Ami means so saying, thy attendants. That means the Vishnudutas implied here, iti ami. Balat arurutuhu, stopped by force, tada, then, bhavajjanaihi nivaritaha techa, they who were obstructed, that means the Yamadutas who were obstructed by thy emissaries, Vishnudutas means, tadiya papam nikilam, all his sins, nyavedayan, narrated. So they stopped by force the messengers of Yama who were tying up and dragging away Ajamila, asking them to release him. Then they who were thus obstructed by thy emissaries narrated all his sins. The word here used is amumcha him Ajamila. The word amum is, for grammar students, comes from the adas sakaranta pullinga shabda. This Ajamila, that is, it indicates first person is asau, amu, ami. Second case. Second case is amum, amu, amun. So amumcha him. That is the second case here. Similarly, the ami is coming. Ami is the reference to the messengers of Vishnuduta. So amum Ajamila was tied by the Yamaduta, and ami means the Vishnuduta that is mentioned here. That is second case Bahuvachanam. Just for understanding of this word. Very, very often in all these Puranas, the word asau, amu is etc. used more than saha taute, because it is directly pointing out. It is a paroksha vakya, it means. So here, Ajamila was tied and dragged away towards hell by Yamadutas. That's what is pointed out. Seeing this, Vishnudutas obstructed the Yamadutas and advised them to release Ajamila. Justifying their actions, Yamadutas narrated the sins committed by him, for which only as a retributive justice he is taken to Naraka or hell, and he does not deserve to go to Swarga. This is justification given by the Yamadutas. They can have an imagery in a different way. At the Vyavaharika level, at that transactional level, the universe, which is nothing but superimposition of the reality, is also subject to dvantas or dualities, like Swarga, Naraka, or Sukha, Dukkha, Dharma, Adharma, etc. They rest only as the sankalpa or the decisions of the mind. From that state, when one sees these relative realities, which one leads like nor causing, which looks like as though they are causing dukkha or unhappiness. When one leads a life causing dukkha or unhappiness to others, his actions enable him to, one leads a life not causing dukkha or unhappiness to others, his actions enable him to generate punya and assist indirectly in gaining mukti. That's what is pointed here, or liberation from samsara. So sinful or adharmic actions, or those which causes dukkha or unhappiness, can cause sangha or attachment and then cause bondage. Hence one has to direct all his actions towards righteousness only, which alone can only absolve him from all attachments and bondage. Ajamila's actions and life history also depicted this message only. Being a pious and righteous person, he was leading dharmic life only in between. So initially he was a pious righteous, in between only, and finally when death neared him, he recollected his wrong and sinful actions, which got manifested in the form of Yamadutas who stood before him. And at that time, he repented for his actions, and due to his attachment for youngest son Narayana, his devotion to Lord bloomed forth in the form of chanting Narayana's name loudly, which is an act of propitiation or an act of paschatapa. Vishnu Dutas represent the Sattvic Rupa, born of absolute devotion and surrender to Lord. Yamadutas could not comprehend the bhakti or devotion of Ajamila and the paschatapa bhava or the remorsefulness of the Ajamila. So the message implied here is that when one repents for the wrong actions and as a result chants the name of Lord, his sinful action gets washed away. And another message is that although the emissaries of Yamaraja have jurisdiction over all sinful living beings, the messengers of Vishnu are capable of punishing even Yamaraja himself. He wrongs a devotee of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. Here one should clearly understand that it is not to say that one can always wash away one's wrong action by chanting the name of Lord, and then at the time of death, and then getting rid of the papas. No, it is not meant that way. That it is when one commits a wrong action and afterwards one has repentance, and then with absolute total devotion to the Lord, remorsefully and one surrenders to the Lord and takes a resolution that I shall lead a noble life, then in such cases, then this becomes an act of paschatapa which washes away the sins. Absolute devotion to the Lord washes away all our karmas, is what the Puranas depicted. The glory of devotion is not only talked about, one gets an opportunity for also coming out of this. The ultimate end is to reach Lord and be away from the samsara. That is the message here. So in such cases, even if someone comes, like Yamadevata comes, says that your past action one has to be punished, and even in such a cases, one gets absolved of these past actions. But there should be total repentance and total surrender. The bhakti bhava should be absolute. The Dvaita Bhakti is talked about very powerfully in this verse also. And this Ajamala story has to be kept in this mind. And we also, when we are committing to so many actions, maybe leading a life also wrongly for some time, not knowing what we are doing, we can always come out of it by chanting the name of the Lord, but taking a firm resolution that I shall never go back to my past actions, repeat my past action, get attached to the Lord and becomes detached from samsara. That should be the state of surrender. In such a case, one gets relieved from the papa karmas. That should be very clearly understood. That is, even karma theory also works effectively in this manner. We will move on to the next verse number 6 in the next session. Bhave yatha bhaktihi padayostava jayade tata kurusha devesha natastam no yada prabho नाम संकीर्तनं यस्य सर्वपापप्रणाशनं प्रणामो दुःखशमनः तं नमामि हरिं परं. नारायण अखिल गुरु भगवन् नमस्ते. हरि ओम्.